To Michael Rapoli, Justice, Prisoner, and Transportation System. The next two awards are presented for Employee of the Year, one operational and one administrative. The recipients are selected by their peers through an agency-wide voting process. Our administrative honoree has continually provided exceptional service and solutions. While her dedication to customer service is consistent and unmatched, it was clearly demonstrated on a Friday afternoon when asked to develop a body armor sizing form as soon as possible. Quickly understanding and prioritizing the requirements and specifications, Ms. Timmons immediately developed and tested a form which was made available for employees to use by the following Monday morning. The form provided an effective and efficient mechanism to purchase and replace body armor throughout the agency. For her exceptional service to others, the Administrative Employee of the Year Award is presented to Nicole Timmons of the Management Support Division. Our operational recipient serves as Chief Inspector of the U.S. Marshal Service Gang Enforcement Program. As a staff coordinator at the Drug Enforcement Agency Special Operations Division's Violent Crime and Gang section, he facilitates fugitive investigations and targeting of transnational criminal organization and gangs. His work on MS-13 initiatives in furtherance of the Attorney General's strategy have been proactive and groundbreaking, leading to the arrest of 63 MS-13 members nationwide for violent offenses in 2017. For his ongoing deployment of counter-gang initiatives, the Operational Employee of the Year Award is presented to Donald Snyder, Investigative Operations Division. The next award category recognizes exceptional performance and notable accomplishments by a new employee with less than 5 years of service with the Marshal Service. Our new Employee of the Year recipient has made extraordinary improvements in the Marshal Service's operational effectiveness, applying statistical analysis and advanced data analytics to information obtained from available law enforcement databases. She has helped design and utilize innovative strategies for data mining and comparison across these and many other law enforcement databases to improve operational effectiveness. Her innovative use of technology has resulted in the identification of thousands of violent wanted felons and sex offenders. For her numerous public safety innovations, the new Employee of the Year Award is presented to Dr. Rebecca Young, Investigative Operations Division.
Good morning. This is Dave Harlow coming to you from retirement. I just want to give a heartfelt congratulations to all the award winners today. We appreciate your service, your sacrifice, and the tremendous way you represent the United States Marshal Service. I also want to give a special thank you to the family and friends who support our people. Without their support, our job would be a lot tougher.
You are watching the 37th Annual U.S. Marshal Awards. These are being held right here in D.C., and Attorney General Jeff Sessions is slated to speak shortly, so we're going to pop back in to the stream when he does come up to the podium to give you a taste of that. But I do want to cover some other things that are happening, and we'll give you a summary of some of our top stories from here and around the nation right here from our newsroom at Fox 5 D.C. We're also expecting Vice President Pence. He's going to be jumping around to a varied amount of get-out-the-vote rallies in advance of Election Day, just 5 days away from now. Let's take a look at these top stories, including an update on the Pittsburgh shooting from Saturday.
As mourners were paying their respects to the victims of Saturday's shooting rampage at Pittsburgh's Tree of Life Synagogue, a federal grand jury today indicted the alleged gunman. Robert Bowers faces 44 counts, including hate crimes. Among the charges, 11 counts of obstruction of free exercise of religious beliefs, resulting in death, and 11 counts of use and discharge of a firearm to commit murder in relation to a crime of violence. Attorney General Jeff Sessions, who will ultimately decide if Bowers will face the death penalty, called the alleged crimes, quote, incomprehensibly evil and utterly repugnant to the values of this nation. According to the indictment, Bowers was armed with 3 Glock 357 handguns and a Colt AR-15 rifle. 2 members of the congregation and 4 police officers were wounded. 3 remain in the hospital and continue to improve.
I think overall the prognoses are good now for all the patients, including the 3 that remain. But each of them, in a varying way, will have a different trajectory and likely require a series of ongoing care.
3 victims of the shooting were laid to rest today. 75-year-old Joyce Feinberg, 88-year-old Melvin Wax, and 69-year-old Irving Younger. The head of the Anti-Defamation League blames a 57% spike in acts of anti-Semitism in the last year, partly on the political climate.
People are anxious, people are on edge, people are tense, and that creates the conditions in which things are very combustible.
The alleged gunman, Robert Bowers, is due to appear in court again tomorrow. At that time, the prosecution says it will present some of the evidence against him. In Pittsburgh, David Lee Miller, Fox News.
It's the final stretch on the campaign trail before millions of voters head to the polls. Now, some familiar faces are pushing to get out the vote with so much on the line next Tuesday.
The Vice President of the United States.
Both Republicans and Democrats are bringing out the heavy hitters just days before this year's midterm elections. It's a full-court press to appeal to voters, with the power in the House and the Senate hanging in the balance.
I was in Congress the last time Nancy Pelosi was Speaker of the House. And you don't ever want that to happen again.
If we stand for who we've always been, we will win on Tuesday, and we will take back this country.
President Trump is also planning to hit the road for a blitz of campaign rallies, 11 cities in 6 days, including a stop in Florida tonight, where races for governor, Senate, and House are neck and neck.
It's crazy, the ability that the president has day in, day out, not just to bring these massive crowds out, but to actually deliver, and with the amount of energy and stamina that he has.
How's everybody doing?
Florida will also be a stop for President Obama on Friday, hoping to give a boost to Democrats. Experts say Republicans stand a better chance of keeping their majority in the Senate, but the House could be a toss-up, with the Democrats some 24 seats short of taking control.
What the president is doing and his Republican colleagues are trying to distract from the Democratic agenda and our message because we're winning.
Despite this final push, some Americans have already made their decision. Early voting is allowed in 37 states and D.C. It's an option more than 45 million Americans took advantage of back in 2016. In Washington, Ray Bogan, Fox News.
On his way out the door to begin a 5-day, 11-rally campaign blitz, President Trump today doubled down on his bet that he can end birthright citizenship for illegal immigrants with a stroke of his executive pen.
This is not a constitutional amendment. You don't need a constitutional amendment for birthright citizenship. I believe that you can have a simple vote in Congress, or it's even possible, in my opinion, this is after meeting with some very talented legal scholars, that you can do it through an executive order.
Earlier today, the president took issue with House Speaker Paul Ryan's assessment that it would take a lengthy congressional process to do it.
I think in this case, the 14th Amendment's pretty clear, and that would involve a very, very lengthy constitutional process.
In a tweet, the president firing back, Paul Ryan should be focusing on holding the majority rather than giving his opinions on birthright citizenship, something he knows nothing about.
All you have to do is take a look at what Harry Reid said in 1993. And guess what? Before he went insane, he got it right.
President Trump did applaud former Democratic Senator Harry Reid, who in 1993 introduced legislation to end birthright citizenship, rejecting it as a reward to lawbreakers.
No sane country would do that, right? Guess again. If you break our laws by entering this country without permission and give birth to a child, we reward that child with U.S. citizenship.
In a statement today, Reid said, I made a mistake. After I proposed that awful bill, my wife Landra immediately sat me down and said, Harry, what are you doing? Don't you know that my father is an immigrant? But at least one Democrat fighting for his political life next Tuesday thinks ending birthright citizenship is worth pursuing.
In regards to birthright citizenship, that's the 14th Amendment of our Constitution. And so how this should be handled is by the Congress. And I heard you say that Lindsey Graham is going to put legislation forward. We have to take a look at that legislation.
Immigration will form a central part of the president's closing argument as he tries to hold control of the House and increase the margins in the Senate. The economy is another issue. At a workforce event this afternoon, the president pointed to volatility in the stock market, warning people's 401ks could be at stake.
They're waiting for the results of the midterms. And if the midterms, for some reason, don't do so well for Republicans, I think you're all going to lose a lot of money.
On birthright citizenship, White House officials tell Fox News that Congress has never passed a law granting citizenship to the children of illegal immigrants and that the Supreme Court has never specifically ruled on that aspect of the 14th Amendment. The White House insists there is nothing in the Constitution to compel citizenship for the children of illegal immigrants and that up until now, doing so has merely been a custom. At the White House, John Roberts, Fox News.
A fourth group of roughly 700 migrants set off from San Salvador Wednesday, many hoping to escape violence and poverty. But as they begin their journey, others who have been walking for days or even weeks are exhausted and getting sick.
There are ailments due to a bad diet, sunstroke, tiredness, sore feet, children with headaches due to the extreme sun, and probably gastrointestinal problems.
Many have decided they can't go on and are either taking time to rest or turning around and heading home. Others are not returning or moving forward. Rather, they're seeking asylum in Mexico. But the majority only have one goal: to push to the border.
I do not see a future here. If it is about staying here, I'd rather go back. It would be better to go back. Our goal is to reach the United States.
But Wednesday, President Trump made more moves to prevent them from meeting that goal, hardening his stance on protecting the border.
As far as the caravan is concerned, our military is out. We have about 5,008. We'll go up to anywhere between 10 and 15,000 military personnel on top of Border Patrol, ICE, and everybody else at the border. Nobody's coming in.
Some critics believe the deployment of troops is a political stunt ahead of the midterms, but Defense Secretary James Mattis rejecting that criticism.
We don't do stunts in this department.
If the deployment reaches 15,000, it would be comparable to the number of troops currently in Afghanistan and about 3 times the amount stationed in Iraq. In Washington, Ray Bogan, Fox News.
For the first time in decades, there are no hostilities along the Korean DMZ. That's the word from the South Korean military. Announcing Thursday, the two sides have completely de-escalated tensions at the border, halting live fire drills, and setting up the first ever no-fly zone. Officials say it's all part of the comprehensive agreement between North and South Korea and the U.S.
The South Korean and North Korean militaries have suspended all hostile activities on land, water, and air near the border. This marks the first step of the new path to peace and prosperity.
But there are concerns from some military experts who say the drills are needed to maintain combat readiness. And giving them up is a concession to Kim Jong-un, with nothing in return. The Pentagon pushing back, saying drills will continue, but in a different location, away from the border. And the main focus has always been finding a diplomatic solution to the standoff.
Our goal here is to ensure that our diplomats speak from a position of strength and we continue to protect the people of the Republic of Korea.
Ultimately, the Trump administration says its top priority is finalizing a denuclearization deal with the North. American diplomats now making that push with their counterparts in Seoul.
We have a shared goal here, and the primary requirement for us to get to that end point is to achieve the final and fully verified denuclearization of Korea.
South Korea's president also announcing an upcoming visit to Seoul by Kim Jong-un. In London, Greg Palcott, Fox News.
It's overwhelming. Still overwhelming and still sinking in.
that a decision was made of that magnitude yesterday, and obviously something totally different in the right direction today.
Marty McNair reacting to the stunning news Wednesday night that head football coach DJ Durkin was fired from his job 1 day after he was allowed back on the practice field. McNair also showing gratitude to his son's teammates who spoke out.
These are the same young men of great character and integrity that if this had happened to someone else's child, I would encourage Jordan to be in that same bunch, speaking up and telling the truth about what happened. So I commend these guys. These are just great guys with bright futures, and here's an opportunity for them to really see how the world works.
This week, a report was made public that detailed several concerning incidents of abuse by Maryland's coaching staff after Durkin was hired as head coach, but stopped short of calling the culture toxic. And after the university announced Durkin would keep his job.
I'd seen consistent outcry from every single constituency I had spoken to, whether it was students, whether it was parents, whether it was alums, Maryland football players, donors, lawmakers, the media. I had not seen anyone that was satisfied with yesterday's decisions other than Chairman Brady and the Board of Regents.
Which rallied the Student Government Association to hold a meeting to vote on emergency legislation calling for the firing of Durkin.
Reports are coming in that Coach DJ Durkin has been fired.
But the news broke during the meeting.
I think today is an example of how powerful student advocacy can be and what we can accomplish when we have a united student body, a united campus community.
Meanwhile, McNair's attorney says it's not over yet.
We believe that Chairman Brady should be immediately dismissed for steering the ship in this horrible direction, contrary to public sentiment, contrary to fairness, contrary to what was legally and spiritually and morally correct.
And this is certainly a local story that has really rocked our area. There have been a lot of details coming out and some changes in the past few days. We're going to continue to stay on it. Once again, Coach Durkin allowed to stay and then officially removed yesterday. And there's been lots of reaction from students on that campus. We're going to continue to follow that in the days to come and throughout the weekend as well. Take a little break from some of these top stories and go back over to the Department of Justice, where Sessions is reportedly going to speak shortly at this award ceremony at right here in D.C. at the Department of Justice for U.S. Marshals.
Mowing the lawn, raking the leaves, and harvesting fish. In the 7 years I was on the Judicial Security Committee, the last 3 as chair, I was extraordinarily confident that our judges nationwide were in the best hands possible. Each of you and your agency are truly indispensable in that mission. The Marshal Service and the Judicial Security Committee have had an excellent relationship. John Bolin was very adept at herding cats, as I like to say about a group of judges. Thank you one and all for your hard work and for caring. Now I want to add my thanks and congratulations to those being honored today at the 37th Directors Award Ceremony. You are a vital part of a great organization. That the director has chosen to honor you should be a great source of pride. When you are picked as one of the best of an organization with so many bests, it's quite an honor. I want to again express, on behalf of the entire judiciary, our condolences to the family of Christopher Hill. His service is honored and remembered as a truly great hero of this nation. Jeff Larson, I must mention how happy and proud I am of your award. For your award should read, for successfully keeping Herndon the Horrible out of harm's way against insurmountable odds. Congratulations, Jeff. Hold on one moment. Sorry for this interruption, but I understand a judge is calling and quite upset. Hi, Judge, what can I do for you? Well, no, I'm not still chair of the Security Committee, but I'd be happy to help. I understand your issue, but the deputy and the CSO were both right when they said they couldn't take you from the courthouse to your doctor's appointment and back. Of course your life is valuable, and you are irreplaceable. But we just don't have the manpower to give every judge a bodyguard. Sorry, folks, looks like this is going to take a while. Best wishes again to all there and agency-wide. Thank you for all you do. Now, Judge.
That was very nice. Judge Herndon to set that video along, as was Director Harlow, who's also present at the ceremony today, so it puts me in the uncomfortable position of reminding you, you get one flat fee. And so one of my biggest challenges throughout my career is trying to be funnier than Director Harlow, and apparently the challenge continues. Glad I had that prepared. The Distinguished Group Award recognizes groups of individuals, both administrative and operational, whose extraordinary accomplishments distinguish them among all others. Each group has selected 3 members to accept the award on the team's behalf. The names of those 3 individuals will be the only names announced. Team members in the audience this morning are asked to please stand as your team is called on stage to accept the award, to allow us to recognize you as well. The first group to be recognized continued its exceptional team performance, achieving outstanding results and exceeding expectations. Throughout their history, this group has consistently delivered superior forfeiture results, but this year was truly exceptional considering the size and complexity of their portfolio, and despite losing 2 senior asset custodians to retirement and transfer. Achieving 0 errors with no material weaknesses or deficiencies noted on their annual audit speaks to their accomplishments, collaborative spirit, and attention to detail. For the team's relentless pursuit of excellence, the Distinguished Group Award is presented to the Asset Forfeiture Unit, Southern District of New York. The team is represented today by Michael Case, Chelsea Cameron, and Michael Conroy. The next team is comprised of government employees and contract support staff who successfully delivered a $1.2 million comprehensive cloud-based service management system for the Marshal Service. The exceptional collaboration and dedication during this major 15-month undertaking ensured the enterprise solution was delivered on budget and on time. The team's attentive efforts and sound decisions through the acquisition requirements, design, testing, and deployment phases of the project established the agency as one of the first DOJ components to implement the ServiceNow cloud solution. For their tremendous efforts, the Distinguished Group Award is presented to the Connect IT implementation team of the Information Technology Division. The team is represented by Carmen Carpenter and Avery Muse. The Digital Accountability and Transparency Act of 2014 requires agencies.
We built a party and we built a state that's now prosperous and the envy of the rest of the country. But you know, you don't just arrive at that destination. You work to get there and you fight to stay there. In today's day, we fight to stay another 4 years and stay in charge. And make sure that we have a governor who's capable of running the
As part of the countdown for Election Day, Vice President Pence is speaking at multiple rallies across the United States. He was in Ohio and Florida throughout the week. Today, he's in Dalton, Georgia, representing or supporting Congressman Brian Kemp, or rather, not Congressman, a candidate for governor in Georgia, and rallying people to get out there and vote this Tuesday. Check it out.
What are we going to Our country is protected, and by God, those who would threaten it or its citizens are going to have to pay the price. I hope you'll join me in recognizing that each of us has a partial role in that. The words that we say matter. What we stand for matters. Who we vote for matters. which is why I'm voting for Brian Kemp, Jeff Duncan, Chris Carr, and up and down the ticket. For the type of men Republicans we want to right. This is my 41st year as an elected Republican in Georgia. A lot of people would tell you that's way too many. But I know I've been blessed to represent the finest people in the United States of America and represent the finest state in the United States of America. And I know when I voted yesterday early in my area of Cobb County, and was proud to turn that ballot in for the 45th year, I guess I've done. I was so proud to do it, so proud of where I live, so proud of the hope and future and prosperity for my kids, so proud that I'm a Republican, so proud that Brian Kemp has put his name on the line, his family on the line, and his future on the line for you and I. So when you go to the ballot box next Tuesday, you put your vote on the line for Brian Kemp. We'll have a greater and newer day. God bless all.
I was overwhelmed with joy. I was very pleased to hear that he was dead.
Infamous mob boss James Whitey Bulger murdered behind bars Tuesday morning, just hours after being transferred to the U.S. Penitentiary Hazleton in West Virginia. The FBI now investigating his death as a homicide. The 89-year-old was reportedly beaten with a lock inside of a sock and had his eyes gouged out.
Here's what it is, I guess. You usually get what you get coming to you, you know?
Bulger served as an FBI informant before spending 16 years as one of America's most wanted men. He was captured in Santa Monica, California at the age of 81, and in 2013 was convicted in connection to 11 murders, as well as extortion and money laundering. Bulger was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences plus 5 years.
He ratted out a lot of people. I'm surprised it wasn't early, that's all.
Bulger's death closes a painful chapter for many families of his victims who say the news of his murder came as a relief.
I just want to get a bottle of champagne and pop that cork.
I hope it was a brutal murder, and I hope all the families and everybody else are looking at this as a positive and a close for them.
While investigators have not named any suspects in this case, 2 Massachusetts gangsters are housed in that same prison facility, one of them who has ties to Whitey Bulger. Jackie Heinrich, Fox News.
Lawmakers in Indiana calling for change after 3 siblings were killed and another student injured while walking to their school bus Tuesday morning.
It's only right that we learn from accidents. It's just the price is way too high. This is shocking.
Some legislators pushing for cameras to be added to school buses to catch drivers who ignored the bus's stop arm. They unsuccessfully tried to pass similar legislation in the past, but after this week's tragedy, lawmakers believe another bill will likely be introduced this year.
You're supposed to be able to go to your bus stop and be safe. You're supposed to get on your bus and be safe.
The NTSB is now investigating the crash that killed 6-year-old identical twins and their 9-year-old sister and left an 11-year-old in stable condition. The driver, 24-year-old Alyssa Shepard, who has been charged in the children's death, had 3 kids in her pickup truck as well when she struck the children who were crossing the road. Shepard telling investigators she saw flashing lights but didn't realize there was a school bus ahead.
We're just telling them to drive safe around buses. You think that would be common sense?
It is illegal in every state to ignore an extended school bus stop arm. According to one estimate, in the past school year, the average number of drivers who illegally passed by school buses, an astonishing 83,944 per day. In New York, Ebony K. Williams, Fox News.
It's okay. It's okay.
A little girl, just 3 months old. Police say officers found her on the floorboard of this car when they pulled over her dad.
You understand why I stopped you?
Change stopped me because I had my baby
in your lap.
In my lap.
How was that a good idea?
It wasn't a good idea.
24-year-old Datavis Madison claimed he was getting ready to pull off the road to change the baby's diaper. But another driver, Danny McLemore, said he had followed Madison for 4 or 5 miles after seeing the little girl in his lap.
Yeah, I mean, just all the way from Lawrenceville all the way down to here.
Okay.
So.
And I happened to look down, and I seen the baby, and I said, that ain't right.
When Snellville police pulled over the car on Scenic Highway, officers say Madison placed his daughter on the floorboard on a blanket, covering up a gun.
The baby was on the floorboard. He tried to get back in the car. We found out there's a gun under the baby. He probably would have grabbed and tried to shoot us. It's going to be a Glock 2240. Come here. Oh, hi.
As mourners were paying their respects to the victims of Saturday's shooting rampage at Pittsburgh's Tree of Life Synagogue, a federal grand jury today indicted the alleged gunman. Robert Bowers faces 44 counts, including hate crimes. Among the charges, 11 counts of obstruction of free exercise of religious beliefs, resulting in death, and 11 counts of use and discharge of a firearm to commit murder in relation to a crime of violence. Attorney General Jeff Sessions, who will ultimately decide if Bowers will face the death penalty, called the alleged crimes, quote, incomprehensibly evil and utterly repugnant to the values of this nation. According to the indictment, Bowers was armed with 3 Glock 357 handguns and a Colt AR-15 rifle. 2 members of the congregation and 4 police officers were wounded. 3 remain in the hospital and continue to improve.
I think overall the prognoses are good now for all the patients, including the 3 that remain. But each of them, in a varying way, will have a different trajectory and likely require a series of ongoing care.
3 victims of the shooting were laid to rest today. 75-year-old Joyce Feinberg, 88-year-old Melvin Wax, and 69-year-old Irving Younger. The head of the Anti-Defamation League blames a 57% spike in acts of anti-Semitism in the last year, partly on the political climate.
People are anxious, people are on edge, people are tense, and that creates the conditions in which things are very combustible.
The alleged gunman, Robert Bowers, is due to appear in court again tomorrow. At that time, the prosecution says it will present some of the evidence against him. In Pittsburgh, David Lee Miller, Fox News.
It's the final stretch on the campaign trail before millions of voters head to the polls. Now, some familiar faces are pushing to get out the vote with so much on the line next Tuesday.
The Vice President of the United States.
Both Republicans and Democrats are bringing out the heavy hitters just days before this year's midterm elections. It's a full-court press to appeal to voters, with the power in the House and the Senate hanging in the balance.
I was in Congress the last time Nancy Pelosi was Speaker of the House. And you don't ever want that to happen again.
If we stand for who we've always been, we will win on Tuesday, and we will take back this country.
President Trump is also planning to hit the road for a blitz of campaign rallies, 11 cities in 6 days, including a stop in Florida tonight, where races for governor, Senate, and House are neck and neck.
It's crazy, the ability that the president has day in, day out, not just to bring these massive crowds out, but to actually deliver, and with the amount of energy and stamina that he has.
How's everybody doing?
Florida will also be a stop for President Obama on Friday, hoping to give a boost to Democrats. Experts say Republicans stand a better chance of keeping their majority in the Senate, but the House could be a toss-up, with the Democrats some 24 seats short of taking control.
What the president is doing and his Republican colleagues are trying to distract from the Democratic agenda and our message because we're winning.
Despite this final push, some Americans have already made their decision. Early voting is allowed in 37 states and D.C. It's an option more than 45 million Americans took advantage of back in 2016. In Washington, Ray Bogan, Fox News.
On his way out the door to begin a 5-day, 11-rally campaign blitz, President Trump today doubled down on his bet that he can end birthright citizenship for illegal immigrants with a stroke of his executive pen.
This is not a constitutional amendment. You don't need a constitutional amendment for birthright citizenship. I believe that you can have a simple vote in Congress, or it's even possible, in my opinion, this is after meeting with some very talented legal scholars, that you can do it through an executive order.
Earlier today, the president took issue with House Speaker Paul Ryan's assessment that it would take a lengthy congressional process to do it.
I think in this case, the 14th Amendment's pretty clear, and that would involve a very, very lengthy constitutional process.
In a tweet, the president firing back, Paul Ryan should be focusing on holding the majority rather than giving his opinions on birthright citizenship, something he knows nothing about.
All you have to do is take a look at what Harry Reid said in 1993. And guess what? Before he went insane, he got it right.
President Trump did applaud former Democratic Senator Harry Reid, who in 1993 introduced legislation to end birthright citizenship, rejecting it as a reward to lawbreakers.
No sane country would do that, right? Guess again. If you break our laws by entering this country without permission and give birth to a child, we reward that child with U.S. citizenship.
In a statement today, Reid said, "I made a mistake. After I proposed that awful bill, my wife Landra immediately sat me down and said, 'Harry, what are you doing? Don't you know that my father is an immigrant?'" But at least one Democrat fighting for his political life next Tuesday thinks ending birthright citizenship is worth pursuing.
In regards to birthright citizenship, that's the 14th Amendment of our Constitution. And so how this should be handled is by the Congress. And I heard you say that Lindsey Graham is going to put legislation forward. We have to take a look at that legislation.
Immigration will form a central part of the president's closing argument as he tries to hold control of the House and increase the margins in the Senate. The economy is another issue. At a workforce event this afternoon, the president pointed to volatility in the stock market, warning people's 401ks could be at stake.
They're waiting for the results of the midterms. And if the midterms, for some reason, don't do so well for Republicans, I think you're all going to lose a lot of money.
On birthright citizenship, White House officials tell Fox News that Congress has never passed a law granting citizenship to the children of illegal immigrants and that the Supreme Court has never specifically
governors since 2002, and they've turned Georgia from a backwater economic state to the best state in the country in which to do business. Please welcome our current governor, Nathan Deal. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Senator. Thank you all for being here today. We're all a little bit wet waiting at the Chattanooga airport. I told them all, I said, that's just Tennessee weather. It's going to get better when you get to Georgia, and sure enough it has. But I have been very pleased with the Republican candidate for governor. I think he's going to carry on the tradition that all of us, I hope, are very proud of as to the position of our state. I've ridden the bus on the tour for the last couple of days, and the crowds are great everywhere, and this is certainly a great turnout. So you should all be proud of the fact you have generated such support. I simply ask of all of you that you extend the same love, prayers, and support for Brian and Marty Kemp that you have extended to me and my wife, Sandra. And I am pleased to present to you now the next governor of the state of Georgia, Brian Kemp.
Thank y'all so much. Oh, thank y'all very much. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Governor Deal, for that kind introduction. It's great to see so many friends, family, and supporters and hard-working Georgians in this crowd right here. Thank y'all so much for being here. And I appreciate all that you're doing to help us get the vote out. You are standing up for Georgia's future. Now, I know you guys know this, but I want to thank Marty and these three girls, Jarrett, Lucy, and Amy Porter, for their unwavering support. They are all in. They are Kemp strong, and we would not be here today if it wasn't for their love, support, and their absolute hard work on the road out there. Help me thank everybody. I also want to thank President Trump and Vice President Mike Pence for their unwavering support in this campaign. This tour across Georgia today with Vice President Pence is going to make a huge difference for us at the ballot box. And I know that you're just like me, that you're excited that President Trump's going to be with us for a huge rally down in Macon on Sunday. And I know that on behalf of all Georgians, I want to thank and extend a moment of gratitude to our President Donald Trump, to Vice President Pence, Secretary Perdue, and Governor Deal for their incredible response to the hurricane just several days ago in Georgia. As you all know, South Georgia, and especially Southwest Georgia, was devastated. But because of the leadership that we've seen at the federal, state, and local level, we will rebuild, and our state will be stronger than ever before. And I want to personally thank, President Trump and Vice President Pence for standing with us in a time of need and standing strong for Georgia. We appreciate that so much. As you all know, this race is a battle for the soul of our state. It is a fight for our future. And my opponent is running the most dishonest campaign that Georgians have ever seen. There is a reason for that. She's lying about my record to hide her extreme agenda. She wants higher taxes. She wants bigger government. And she wants a radical government takeover of health care. And listen, those are her so-called moderate positions. She also wants to give taxpayer benefits, welfare, and free college to those that are here illegally. And she's encouraging illegals to go out and vote for her and be part of the so-called blue wave. Not even California is that radical. But with your vote, we can stop this craziness. And as governor, I will invest in public education and give our teachers a raise. We will cut taxes. We will cut taxes like last year and lower health care premiums. I will fight hard to always protect the Hope Scholarship and keep our kids safe at school. But make no mistake, I will always fight, and with your help, we will win on our conservative issues that we believe in, including our Second Amendment. And I will work with President Trump and Vice President Pence to keep Georgia working and do our part to make America great again. But we need your help. We need your help. And I'm asking you to join us in this final push to help us turn out the vote. This is the fourth quarter. This is the fourth quarter. I need you to show up like the dogs did in Jacksonville last weekend. I need your vote. And I know most of you have probably already voted, but I need your vote, and I need you to go get 10 more. 10 more. If you do that, if you help us do that, we will build a red wall around this state to stop that so-called blue wave. Now is the time to hunker it down one more time and keep chopping. If you do that, I will be your next governor. And I will promise you this, I will work hard every day to put Georgians first. Now, to help us win on Tuesday, it is my great honor to introduce a man I deeply respect, a strong person with great faith, and he has been a great friend to us here in the Peach State. He is an unapologetic conservative just like me, a man of principle and rock-solid faith. Georgia, please help me welcome our friend and our Vice President, Mike Pence.
She stood in the street, smiling from my head to her feet. I said, hey, what is this? Now, baby, maybe
back in the Peach State, just 5 days away from another great victory all across the state of Georgia and all across America. And I'm here for one reason and one reason only. Georgia and America need Brian Kemp to be the next governor of the great state of Georgia. I don't know if you knew this, it's actually Brian's birthday today. And I asked him what he wanted for his birthday. I actually asked him what he wanted for his birthday, and he said, without any hesitation, he wanted 4 more years of strong Republican leadership at the State House in Georgia. And speaking of strong Republican leadership, let me bring greetings from a friend of mine. I talked to him this morning. His vice president is here today, but he'll be in Macon on Sunday. Let me bring greetings from the 45th President of the United States of America, President Donald Trump. Isn't he something? I got to tell you, it's the greatest honor of my life to serve as vice president to a president who gets up every day and fights to keep the promises that he made to the people of Georgia and the people of America. I mean, think about it. Just in the last few weeks alone, new jobs report comes out, 4.2 million new jobs created since Election Day, and unemployment's at a 50-year low. And the unemployment rate for African Americans and Hispanic Americans has set an all-time record, and unemployment for women hasn't been this low in 65 years. The American dream is working again. And we just cut a brand new trade deal with our neighbors to the north and the south. And the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement finally puts American jobs, American workers, and American farmers first. And just a little while back, this president kept another big promise when he saw Justice Brett Kavanaugh confirmed to the Supreme Court of the United States of America. I mean, I got to tell you, I think there's only one way you can describe the last 2 years. It's been 2 years of action. It's been 2 years of results. It's been 2 years of promises made and promises kept. And we're just getting started, Georgia. That's why we need Brian Kemp in the governor's office. I mean, you've got some incredible leadership here. I'm going to talk about Brian in a minute. We all know how he served this state with such integrity. But would you join me in thanking someone who served this state? I served with him in the Congress. I watched him come home to Georgia. Governor Nathan Deal has served the state of Georgia so well, and he has our thanks. Thank you, Governor. And how about your 2 strong senators who stood with this administration through thick and thin, Senator Johnny Isakson and Senator David Perdue. And a man I also served with back when I was a congressman. I know he's your hometown congressman, but he's a principled conservative who stood with this president every step of the way. Congressman Tom Graves, thank you. Thank you for your leadership. I mean, I got to tell you, to see the progress that Georgia has made with these leaders, with your leaders at the state level, it's truly been inspiring. I mean, Georgia right now is ranked consistently as the best state in America to do business, actually for 5 years in a row. Great companies like Mercedes and Pulte Homes have moved their headquarters here. Georgia's home to some of the world's greatest companies, Delta Airlines, Home Depot, Coca-Cola. But to keep it going, we got to keep Georgia growing. We got to have Brian Kemp as the next governor of the state of Georgia. I mean, Brian Kemp basically is Georgia. You get right down to it. He embodies Georgia values. And how about his incredible family? Let's hear it for Marty, Jarrett, Lucy, and Amy. That's going to be a great first family for the state of Georgia. You all know Brian's story, a small businessman for decades. He built his first business, I was told, with nothing more than a pickup truck and a shovel. And he went to work. He's literally created hundreds of jobs across Georgia. He's a man of integrity who's answered the call for public service. He served with great distinction in the state Senate, fought against tax increases, rolled back regulations, and as your Secretary of State, Brian Kemp has made Georgia's government more effective, more accountable for the people that it served, and he saved taxpayers millions of dollars while he did it. That's exactly the kind of leadership you want in the governor's office. I mean, frankly, what Brian Kemp's life is all about, his principles and priorities, just like those that the president's been putting into practice at the national level over the last 2 years. I mean, think about the progress that we've made. Did you know that this president, with the strong support of your senators and Congressman Graves, this president has actually signed more bills rolling back federal red tape than any president in American history. We've unleashed American energy as never before, and we got America out of that disastrous Paris Climate Accord. We got new fair and reciprocal trade deals, not only among our neighbors, but with South Korea. We've already started negotiations with European Union, with Japan, and we put China on notice that the era of massive trade deficits is over. We've been supporting farmers as never before. This administration's been standing with our farmers and ranchers. We're going to get a farm bill done with work requirements for able-bodied adults, and we're going to be there so agriculture in South Georgia comes all the way back after Hurricane Michael. And finally, just like the kind of leadership Brian Kemp's going to bring to Georgia, this president, right before Christmas, signed the largest tax cuts and tax reform in American history. We cut taxes for working families. We cut taxes for businesses, and we cut out the core of Obamacare. The individual mandate is gone. You know what Governor Deal just told me is because of those massive historic tax cuts, for the first time ever, Georgia was able to cut income taxes for working families all across the state. Thank you, Governor. I mean, the truth is, in case you haven't noticed, with the policies President Trump's been advancing and the policies that Brian Kemp will advance and keep going here in Georgia, confidence is back. Jobs are coming back. In a word, America is back, and we're just getting started. True. But You all here in Georgia know that what we know, that it's not just about jobs and the economy and growth. Everything begins with security. And you know, I got to tell you, as the proud father of a United States Marine, I couldn't be more proud to serve with a president who cares so deeply about the men and women of our armed forces and their families. With the support of our partners in Congress, President Trump has already signed the largest increase in our national defense since the days of Ronald Reagan. We're rebuilding our military and restoring the arsenal of democracy. And we've been standing with our veterans as never before. All new accountability at the VA, people that aren't providing the health care that our veterans earned in the uniform of the United States are gone. And now our veterans have real choice, veterans' choice for world-class health care. And this president, just like Brian Kemp will do, has stood without apology for the rule of law. President Trump's been appointing strong conservatives to our courts at every level, not just the Supreme Court. Last year, President Trump set a record, the most Court of Appeals judges confirmed in a single year than any president in American history, and they are all principled, conservative men and women who will uphold the God-given liberties in our Constitution, like the freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, and the right to keep and bear arms in the Second Amendment. And like Brian Kemp, President Trump has stood without apology for the sanctity of human life at home and abroad. It's not just security, our national defense, and our veterans and our courts, but it's also about standing with the men and women who serve on the thin blue line of law enforcement. You know, last Saturday, in the midst of that tragedy in Pittsburgh, the nation saw once again the courage and selflessness of our law enforcement officers. 11 members of the Jewish community in Pittsburgh lost their lives in the midst of that horrific attack. Some 6 others were injured, including 4 members of the law enforcement community. They ran into the face of danger, and their efforts undoubtedly saved lives. As the President and I have made clear, this attack was not just criminal, it was evil. Justice in this case will be swift and severe. We will not allow violence or anti-Semitism to take hold in the United States of America. This week, the President and the First Lady traveled to Pittsburgh to pay their respects to the fallen and carry the prayers and condolences of the American people to that entire community. In the days ahead, I promise you, we're going to work closely with leaders at every level to bring these senseless acts of violence to an end. We're going to work together, as President Trump said, to rise above the hate, to move past the divisions, to embrace our common destiny as Americans. And we will always support the men and women of law enforcement who protect our families, protect our lives at the risk of their own. With that renewed support for law enforcement, we've been removing dangerous criminals from our streets at record numbers. We've also been enforcing our laws. We've been securing our borders. And we've already started to build that wall. Brian Kemp knows what this president knows. We have a crisis of illegal immigration in this country. It's maybe never been more obvious than in the last few weeks, as we've seen a migrant caravan make their way from Central America, now making their way through Mexico. You know, as the President said, thousands of people that are coming north for the sole purpose of violating our laws and attempting to come in to our country illegally are nothing short of an assault on our country, and it will not be allowed. The truth is, these caravans are being used by leftist groups organized by human traffickers with no regard for human life. I mean, the simple truth is that these human traffickers profit by taking advantage of loopholes in the laws of our country to entice vulnerable families with young children and the elderly, to make the long and dangerous journey of the Peninsula. But the truth is, they're also being driven by the dangerous policies of the Democratic Party. I mean, think about it. Democrats don't want to build a wall. They don't want to secure our border. They don't want to close immigration loopholes that human traffickers use every day to exploit vulnerable people in Central America. And frankly, many of the leading voices in the Democratic Party today are calling on our country to abolish immigration and customs enforcement. But let me make you a promise. With President Donald Trump in the White House and Brian Kemp in the State House, we will never abolish ICE. We will stand with those men and women in law enforcement. I mean, I heard just the other day that Stacey Abrams, Brian's opponent, actually said that brave law enforcement officers who work with ICE are, in her words, terrorizing families. That's no surprise, though. Stacey Abrams wants illegal immigrants to get taxpayer-funded benefits. And I read where she actually said that the blue wave that's supposed to be coming to Georgia includes those who are, and I quote, documented and undocumented. Well, let me tell you something. If that's the blue wave coming, it's going to hit a red, white, and blue wall right here in the state of Georgia. And I'll make you a promise. With Brian Kemp as your governor, President Donald Trump in the White House, with renewed Republican majorities on Capitol Hill, we're going to build that wall. We're going to secure that border. We're going to close the loopholes in our immigration laws, and we're going to end this crisis of illegal immigration once and for all. So it's about the progress, the prosperity. It's about this outstanding candidate that you got before you today. But you all have a choice to make. The people of Georgia in just a few days are going to face a choice, and it couldn't be more distinct. Not just for the reasons that I just said, but the choice between Brian Kemp and Stacey Abrams couldn't be more stark. I mean, Brian Kemp is going to cut your taxes after he becomes governor. Stacey Abrams says she's going to raise your taxes by more than $300 million. Brian Kemp's going to cut regulations, get government off your back. Stacey Abrams is going to make Georgia's government bigger than ever before. In her words, she's going to have a government that's there for you, quote, from cradle to career. Brian Kemp's going to fight for Georgia's farmers, ranchers, and producers, including Georgia's pecan farmers, poultry producers, and everybody hit so hard by these difficult storms. And his opponent, I'm told, actually said, quote, people shouldn't have to go into agriculture to make a living in Georgia. And I just heard the other day, Brian Kemp's getting the support of all kinds of hardworking, good people all across Georgia, and Stacey Abrams being bankrolled by Hollywood liberals, sending their support into the state, and some of them come into the state. Like I heard OPRAH's in town today. And I heard heard Will Ferrell was going door to door the other day. Well, I'd like to remind Stacey and Oprah and Will Ferrell, I'm kind of a big deal too. You get that? And I got a message. I got a message for all Stacey Abrams' liberal Hollywood friends. This ain't Hollywood. This is Georgia. And Georgia wants a governor that's going to put Georgia values and Georgia first. And Brian Kemp's going to do just that. So you got a great candidate. We've made great progress in the last 2 years. You've got a choice to make. But I recognize, this is the next 5 days is going to be critical. Because, the truth is that these first midterm elections for the party that's in the White House are challenging. That's what the conventional wisdom says. And it's actually been true for the Republican Party for every election for the last 100 years except for 2. Conventional wisdom says it's going to be tough to re-elect our majorities in Washington, D.C. and to elect Republican governors to state houses across the country. That's the conventional wisdom. But I think we all know what President Donald Trump thinks of conventional wisdom. We made history in 2016, and we're going to make history again in 2018 when we elect Brian Kemp as the governor of the state of Georgia and re-elect Republican leaders across this country. We're going to do it. But it's going to take all of us to do it. I've got 3 things I want to ask you to do before I got a plane to catch and miles to go before I sleep. Number one, I want you to decide right here, right now, if you haven't already done it, that you are going to vote, Georgia. You're going to vote to make Brian Kemp the next governor of Georgia. Okay? Remember, these elections are won by the people that show up. Right? And remember, friends don't let friends vote alone. Go out and find a family member, a neighbor, at worship, at work, and just, grab them by the elbow and ask them, have you voted yet? And if they haven't, I'm sure they get to the polls before they close on election day in 5 days. Second thing is I want you to go tell somebody. The truth of the matter is I've been thinking a lot about this time 2 years ago. There weren't a whole lot of pundits out there that thought the president and I would be moving to Washington, D.C. But Georgians are different. Thank God. But I tell you what, I never doubted it, neither did he. And I think the reason was because we were out with all you. And we saw the enthusiasm. And we knew that people across Georgia were talking to one another, that people here in Dalton were talking to their neighbors and friends. And so that's what I want to encourage you to do this time around. You just say, I ran into Mike the other day in Dalton. And he and Governor Deal and Senator Isaacson and Senator Perdue are all fired up about making Brian Kemp the next governor of the state of Georgia. So you got to go tell them. Tell them about this good man. Tell them about this man of integrity. Tell them about the foundation in his life, the great family, his proven conservative record to be able to build on the momentum of the state of Georgia. Tell them about the choice we made. Just tell them with Brian Kemp in the State House. You ain't seen nothing yet, Georgia. Lastly, I would encourage you to do one more thing, and this one I know Brian and I, we bonded very early because we both stand on the same rock. I would tell you,
You know, in the 5 days that remain here, it seems like across this country, there's more focus on what divides us in America than ever before in my lifetime. But I'll always believe, and I know Brian believes, there will always be more that unites us in these United States of America than will ever divide us. And chief among that is faith. The American people have faith in one another. Our faith in freedom is grounded in our belief in the boundless capacity of any individual to improve themselves, given them freedom and the opportunity to do it. But it's also grounded in that other kind of faith. And so I'd encourage you to exercise that in the days ahead. And on this one, I know that Brian and his family won't mind. I'm actually not talking about a candidate or a campaign or a party or a cause. You know, in these two divided of times in America, I just encourage you to bow the head and bend the knee and pray for America. Pray for all the people of America. Pray for all of the people of this one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, because prayer matters. And with His grace, we'll heal this land. So thank you all for coming out. Thanks for hearing me out. And honestly, let me say to neighbors here at Dalton, on behalf of my little family, you know, this grandson of an Irish immigrant, grew up in a small town in southern Indiana. Thank you for the privilege of serving as your vice president. I leave here today with a grateful heart and with renewed confidence. I really do. Seeing all of you out here today, I'll tell you what. With Brian Kemp in the State House, with renewed Republican majorities in the Congress of the United States, with renewed Republican leadership at every level all across the state of Georgia, President Donald Trump in the White House, and with God's help. I just know we will make Georgia and America more prosperous than you could possibly imagine. We will make Georgia and America safer than ever before. And if we do all we need to do in what remains of this election season in the next 5 days, we will make America great again. Thank you very much. God bless you. God bless Georgia and God bless America.
Sun coming up over New York City. Still bus driver in a traffic jam, staring at the faces in her rearview mirror, looking at the promise of the promised land. One kid dreams of fame and fortune. One kid helps pay the rent. One could end up going to prison. One just might be president. Only in America, dreaming in red, white, and blue. Only in America, where we dream as big as we want to. We all give a chance. Everybody gets to dance. taking back over emotion.
That matter. She cares about Medicaid expansion. She cares and won't be wearing oxygen masks 10 years from now. She cares about common sense gun control. She doesn't want to take the guns from the people. This is Georgia. We know people want to hunt in Georgia. But since when have we lost common sense for common sense? Common sense gun control. She cares about affordable housing, and she cares about criminal justice reform to protect our communities and creating jobs. So the reason I am a registered independent is because I believe that everybody should have the right to vote their values and vote your conscience regardless of the party. And I tell you, I have voted Republican and I have voted Democrat, and each time I voted for the people who I felt represented my values. So Stacey Abrams' values are in alignment with the consciousness of which our democracy has been founded. The very foundation of our democracy is to think about other people, to live a life in service to others. Democracy is not just about our individual rights and concerns and our individual protections, but rather it lives and thrives in making sure that everybody is lifted by the community, that everybody, it lives because the baseline is not just what I want or what I need or what's going to fill my pocketbook, but recognizing that what is good for everybody is good for us. It's good for us. And Stacey Abrams gets that. She gets that. She understands, and she will serve the underserved of the state of Georgia. Because you see, here's the truth. All of us may have been created equal, but if you're woke, if you woke just a little bit, you got sense enough to know that everybody is not treated equally. The reality is this. The reality is we see injustices, big and small, all around us every single day of our lives. And I know it's easy for a lot of people to feel that you have no power against those injustices. But this is what I'm here to tell you. This land was made for you and me. This land was made for you and me. That's not just a song, that's the truth. And I will tell you that we are not powerless. Every single one of us has the same power at the polls. And every single one of us has something that, if done in numbers too big to tamper with, cannot be suppressed and cannot be denied. As our civil rights predecessors used to say, we shall not be moved. So every single one of us has the same power at the polls. We have the ability to go into a tiny booth, or in my neighborhood, it's not even a booth, just a little stand. And every one of us, regardless of the color of our skin, it doesn't matter when you're there at the polls. We're the God we pray to. It doesn't matter who we choose to love, whether or not we graduated high school or went to college, or how much money you have in the bank, or whether or not you have a pre-existing condition, or whether you're elderly, or whether you're not, whether you're developmentally disabled. Doesn't matter at the polls. We are all equal in power. So on November 6th, you all here, you already got it. You got it. So now your job is to go out and let everybody else know how to get it. That you make your voice heard on November 6th. We have this incredible opportunity to make history. We have our inalienable right to vote, because the one place where we're all equal, where is it? It's at the polls. And I'm here today because I know you know that, but I just came to remind you of the power. I'm here because I want you to remind others of the power. And I want to make it very clear to all the press, everybody, I'm not here because I'm making some grandstand, because I'm thinking about running myself. I don't want to run, okay? I'm not trying to test any waters. Don't want to go in those waters. I'm here today because of Stacey Abrams. I'm here today because of the men and because of the women who were lynched, who were humiliated, who were discriminated against, who were suppressed, who were repressed and oppressed for the right, for the equality at the polls. And I want you to know that their blood has seeped into my DNA, and I refuse to let their sacrifices be in vain. I refuse. And I'm here today don't let nobody tell you you can't let their sacrifices be in vain. I'm here today because, like a lot of young people, I didn't take voting seriously until around my mid-20s. And around my mid-20s, I had the privilege of hearing Reverend Otis Moss Jr., who's a preacher. Y'all know him? Preacher in Cleveland, Ohio. And I heard him tell the story of his father, of Otis Moss Sr., who right here in Georgia's Troup County got up in the morning and put on his only suit and his best tie. And he walked 6 miles to the voting poll location he was told to go to in LaGrange. And when he got there, after walking 6 miles in his good suit and tie, they said, boy, you at the wrong place. You're at the wrong place. You need to go over to Mountville. So he walked another 6 miles to Mountville. And when he got there, they said, boy, you at the wrong place. You need to go to the Rosemont School. And I picture him walking from dawn to dusk in his suit, his feet tired, getting to the Rosemont School, and they say, boy, you too late. The polls are closed. And he never had a chance to vote. By the time the next election came around, he had died. So when I go to the polls and I cast my ballot, I cast it for a man I never knew. I cast it for Otis Moss Sr., who walked 18 miles one day just for the chance to vote. And when I go into the polls, I cast the vote for my grandmother, Hattie Mae Lee, who died in 1963 before the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and never had a chance to vote. I vote for her. And when I stand in the polls, I do what Maya Angelou says, I come as one, but I stand as 10,000. For all those who paved the way that we might have the right to vote. And for anybody here who has an ancestor who didn't have the right to vote, and you are choosing not to vote wherever you are in this state, in this country, you are dishonoring your family. You are disrespecting and disregarding their legacy, their suffering and their dreams when you don't vote. So honor your legacy. Honor your legacy. Honor your right to citizenship in this, which is the greatest country in the world. The greatest country in the world. And the right to vote is like the crown we all get to wear. Maya used to say, baby, your crown has been paid for, so put it on your head and wear it. So your crown's been paid for. The right to vote is your crown. So this is a tight race here in Georgia. This is tight. And there are tight races all over this country that depend on all of us giving honor to our greatest democratic right and privilege. So let your vote make a difference. Let your vote count. Let your vote speak for you. If you're a woman, let me just talk to the women for a minute. If you're a woman, you need to recognize it hasn't even been 100 years since we even had the right to vote, since we were considered a piece of property. You couldn't even own a piece of property. I loved land so much, and I think, boy, if I was born at the turn of the century, 20th century, I wouldn't even have the right to own the land without your father or your husband saying it was so. You didn't have the right to even take care of yourself. So you didn't have a voice, and now we do. We as women people need to stand united and vote our values. Vote your values. Vote your conscience. All this noise, all the noise, you just can't get away from it. You turn on the TV, on the web, it's so much noise and crazy talk. All the vitriol in the ads, you know what? They are designed to confuse and confound you with fear. That's what they're done. They're designed to confound you with fear. They are not designed for people with discernment. Women, people, we have discernment. And when you know the right thing and you can feel it, you can feel what is the right thing to do, you can't be influenced by propaganda and fear. So now is the time for discernment. And only when we unite as sisters, and I don't just mean sisters, I mean sisters, black sisters, brown sisters, white sisters, Asian sisters, LGBTQ sisters. When we all unite, I know for sure a change is going to come. So I'm here today to support a change maker. She's a woman who dared believe that she could change the state of Georgia. And she is dynamic. She is so inspired and inspiring. She's bold. She's bold. She's bold. And bodacious. She's a Georgia warrior woman. Ladies and gentlemen, Stacey Abrams. Hi, Mom and Dad. Stacey, 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 Stacey. Oh, fun. Great, great, great. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. So much. Ah, beautiful. You get a vote, and you get a vote, and you get a vote. All right, spread the word. Great to be here with you. Great to be here with you. Everybody get the vote. I'm with you. All right, we're going to talk for a few minutes and then take a couple questions from you all. Could you have ever imagined that two girls from Mississippi with the kind of upbringing that we've had would be sitting on this stage?
Not at all. I'm still not quite certain I believe I'm sitting here. I'm having a little bit of an out-of-body experience, but it's fun. It's awesome.
I love it. I love it. I love the fact that you had to pull over to the side of the road. Yes. I do love that. You know, I am intrigued by your story, as have so many other people been intrigued by your story, but more than intrigued by this idea that you would actually dare to take this on. I have found in my own experience that when something major is happening, there's something inside you that feels like it's a calling. It's more than just, oh, I just want to have a career, or I just want to do that. And I want to know how that manifested inside you, that you knew that for such a time as this, you were called to this moment.
I was raised by Robert and Carolyn Abrams. They are originally from Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
And they're right here today. Right here.
They're sitting right here.
Today.
They used to make us go and volunteer, which made me a little irritated because I'm like, we're poor too. Why are we volunteering? And my mother's way of saying it was having, no matter how little we had, there were more people with less. Your job is to serve that person.
Yeah.
My dad was more succinct. He was like, having nothing is not an excuse for doing nothing.
Wow.
But it instilled in me two things. One, I believe poverty is immoral. I think it robs us of our humanity. I think it robs us of opportunity. And I think it's solvable. But the second piece is that I realized when I was in the legislature that the person who sits in the governor's office decides access to education, to health care, to jobs, that Stand Your Ground was not created by the president. It was created by the governor of Florida. That mass incarceration didn't start in D.C. It started with the governor of California. That the erosion of the social safety net did not happen in '94. It happened in the early '90s with the governor of Wisconsin. And Jim Crow never had a federal law. It was all states that stopped Otis Moss from being able to cast a vote. And so for me, the calling is that this was the moment. 2018 is our time because we can't wait anymore.
And do you Do you think that there's a basic misunderstanding in our culture about midterms and what the role of state representatives and governors do that causes people to not to get out?
Well, we spend a lot of money. Billions of dollars are spent telling us who the president is, what the president does. But also for communities that have been vulnerable, it's been federal law that's changed our lives. That the equal rights opportunities, the Civil Rights Amendment, if you're a person of color, if you're a woman, often salvation came from the federal government. What we forget is that they were often solving state-created problems. And that if you could engineer the problem at the state level, you can engineer the solution at the state level.
So we all know this. Anybody who runs their own business, whether it's a cupcake shop or whether you're a teacher, funeral home, funeral home, we need you. Anybody knows, any kind of business you're running, that the key to getting anything done is leadership. So how has everything that is, because I always believe everything that has happened in your life prepares you for this moment right now. How has everything that's happened to you informed how you will lead this diverse state with all of the communities and all of the people?
I recently told a story of my first major loss. I applied for a scholarship, and everyone said if I was the first black woman to win from Mississippi, I would be a shoo-in at the national level. I won in Mississippi. I did not win. I did not win the Rhodes Scholarship, and that was a lofty prize, but it devastated me because I started to think I wasn't smart enough, I wasn't good enough. I decided not to take advantage of certain opportunities. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized losing prepares you for success. And so standing for this office, being the first black woman to try for this job, it's not a function, I think I'm gonna win, but my point is leadership is about being willing to take the risk, not knowing if you'll get the reward. Being able to work across the aisle, work with Republicans in the House. I appreciated what you said about being an independent. My job was leading Democrats, but sometimes it meant leading them to work with Republicans they didn't like. Because we may have different ways of getting there, but I have to believe we fundamentally want the best for everyone. And it was about, as a business owner, when you've lost a business, you understand how important access to capital is. When you go to a bank and they tell you no and they can't give you a good reason, you realize it may not be something it may be something that you can't change. I'm going to be black until I die. I'm going to be a woman until I die. And so it wasn't about changing who I am. It was about figuring out how could I leverage that experience into a solution for others. And so I think you're absolutely right. Leadership comes from taking those mistakes and those failures, but also those barriers that you overcome and turning them into solutions for other people.
Do you think that even in these divisive times, I was sharing with the audience that I was in my hotel room for just 10 minutes and TV was on, and the vitriol coming from the ads, the attacks, the fear-based trying to motivate people out of fear is so bad right now. How can you bridge that? How can you make a difference?
I spent Sunday evening at Temple Emmanuel in Dunwoody, mourning with Jewish families who were connected to the Tree of Life synagogue in Pittsburgh. And as I sat there, the rabbi, who had no reason to include me, brought me up to light one of the candles of mourning and to share words. And part of getting beyond divisiveness is the willingness to acknowledge difference, but not let those differences change who we are. I'm not a different person. I've been running the same campaign. Those who have been paying attention, I've been the same person since June 2017. But I've been the same person because you can't ask people to trust who you are or to follow you into hard times if they don't know who they're following. And part of getting past divisiveness is being authentically yourself. And people may not like that. And I'm fairly certain half of Georgia is not going to pick me. I just need 50% plus one of them to do so. But my job is going to be to serve all of them. And that's why I went to Forsyth County. Yeah. I went to Dade County, but I've also been to pockets of Atlanta that don't believe that anybody sees them either. Because divisiveness is not always based on race or gender or sexual orientation. Sometimes it's based on thinking that the haves don't care about the have-nots. And the way you knit people together is by showing you actually care, by showing up. Yeah. And that's the most important piece.
You know, as I was saying, that I think that there's nothing that happens in your life that doesn't prepare you for whatever moment you're experiencing at any given time. And, you know, I was wondering how, as you were talking about, you didn't get the Rhodes Scholarship, and having student loans and student debt. First of all, it's amazing we get to live in a country where you can still be paying your student loans and run for governor.
Yes.
Yes. So I would like to know, I think this is actually an important question. What has debt taught you?
Number one, that you don't have to walk away from your responsibilities. Debt does not mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you aren't responsible. It doesn't mean you're not a good person. Part of what I've had to learn to do is to manage not only my expectations of myself, but also the limits I was putting on myself. Because there are those who told me I could not run because I had debt. There were those who told me that because I'm on a payment plan with the IRS, I could not run for governor. And number one, you were kind enough to call me bold. They considered it a very bold thing to do, but part of it was, I know how to manage a budget. When you don't have enough and you got to do a lot, you learn how to manage a budget. Number two, I know how to meet my obligations. I don't have to, no one's had to sue me to get their money back. They will all. But part of that is, part of what debt teaches you is that other people have needs too. Yeah. And part of your responsibility is that you can't put your needs in front of anyone else's. You might have to line them up side by side and one moves a little faster, but that you don't get to sublimate someone else's desires to meet your own. And so, I mean, I've been privileged, and I consider it a privilege. I get to help my parents. I get to help my niece. I get to help my grandmother. When my siblings have called on me or when I've had to call on them, we've been able to stand together. And all of us have gone into some debt to do it. But because we've gone in together, we are lifted up together. And I think that's what debt teaches you.
I know that you speak a lot about your relationship to faith, and I was wondering, has your faith been tested during this campaign? Have you said, Jesus, where are you?
Yeah. So my parents are pastors, and they've had to pray for me. Sometimes I have to remind myself that you don't say certain things when you believe in God. But yeah, I mean, look, when you know who you are and you know whose you are, it is hard to have someone tell a lie about you. It is difficult to meet meanness with kindness. It is hard to remind yourself that you have to think about the whole Bible and not just the verses that make you happy in that moment. And so, you know, I lean on the teachings. He is. But I also, my parents taught me that faith is more than words. It is deed. It is how you behave, and not how you behave when it's easy. It's how you behave when it's hard, when no one's watching, when you can do something to your opponent that would move you ahead, but you know it would scar your spirit. That's the moment where faith is truly tested, and I've done my level best to never fail that test.
We have a couple of questions from the audience. I don't know who's in charge of that, but hello? You are, okay.
Hi. My name is Melissa, and this question is for Stacy. I wanted to know what your plans are for making sure that our schools finally have resources that they need so that our kids can get a quality education. Our schools are so underfunded, and I'm very concerned about it.
Thank you. Melissa? Thank you. So in the state of Georgia, in 16 years, the Republicans have managed to fully fund education one time. And conveniently, it was an election year this year. But here's the thing. We have to change our expectations of our leaders. You don't have to raise taxes to raise expectations. What you do have to do is recognize that education, when the state is responsible, it's not responsible for education with a small e. It is responsible for public education. That is our job. And I talk about it from cradle to career, investing in early childhood learning, because you shouldn't go into debt taking care of a 2-year-old. It's about making sure that parents can afford it, but also that there are opportunities available. And we have some counties where there is no opportunity for childcare, where parents are basically going off to shift work, leaving their child with someone that they met a couple of days ago, and they hope things are okay when they get home, but they know if they don't go, then there won't be a home to come back to. But it's also about paying our educators a living wage, a competitive wage. And I use educators because I mean our teachers, but I also mean our paraprofessionals, our school bus drivers, our cafeteria workers. And then lastly, it's making sure that we understand that a child who comes to school hungry on Monday because they last ate on Friday cannot learn with the best educator. And so we have to have a comprehensive approach to education, wraparound services, where we educate the whole child. And Marietta is actually doing an extraordinary job of that, understanding mental health services for children who have challenges early that become consequences later, that become a drug addiction because they didn't get the support they needed from mental health disorders like bipolar disorder or early onset schizophrenia. It's making sure that we fully fund our schools so we educate the whole child, and that we make certain that everyone in our school system is treated like the humans and the people that they are so they can be successful.
Okay, who's in charge? Anybody? Okay, you got one?
Hello. Hi. This question is for my sister Stacy. Okay. It says, one of the biggest things I worry about here is healthcare, and hospitals keep closing in small towns, and doctors and nurses are being moved out. A lot of women die here during childbirth. What can we do to fix this? I'm Sister Robin.
Thank you. So let's understand, Georgia has the highest maternal mortality rate in the nation. More women die within a year of giving childbirth in Georgia than any other state. Why? Because we don't have access to doctors. We have 79 counties that do not have an OBGYN. We have 64 counties without a pediatrician. We have women who give birth, and the first time they see a doctor is at the hospital. And that's assuming they can get there, because there are 9 counties without a single hospital at all. There are 9 counties without doctors, not hospitals, without doctors. And so Georgia has 159 counties. We have a state-based healthcare finance system, which means that until we bring in enough money to provide coverage to everyone, they will not be served. And so if you live in a rural county, if we've lost access to a hospital, that means you could die from a stroke, because it takes you more than an hour to get to a doctor. The Republican solution has been nothing. It has been absolutely nothing. Because the problem is, you cannot solve a $1.7 billion problem with a $60 million solution. But if we expand Medicaid in the state of Georgia, if we expand Medicaid, we do 3 things. Number 1, we provide access to health insurance for 500,000 Georgians, including 25,000 veterans and their spouses who are denied access because they are considered too wealthy for regular insurance but too poor for Medicaid. It's about making sure that people, not only in rural communities, but we have working families, people who are working full-time jobs, but they work 39 hours here and 38 hours there, and they don't qualify for benefits. but they're considered too wealthy in Georgia to be covered by health care. We can create 56,000 jobs in Georgia, and we can do mental health care and substance abuse treatment in the state of Georgia. Right now, the #1 provider of mental health care and substance abuse in Georgia is not our hospitals, it's our prison system. In Georgia, you are more likely to be treated in prison, which means we are incarcerating you for being sick. And once you're incarcerated, you can't get a job, you can't get housing, and when you get out of jail, you're not entitled to health care in Georgia until we expand Medicaid. And so for us to pay doctors, to reimburse nurses, to create clinics, to save rural hospitals, to make certain that families are actually productive and healthy instead of getting metformin to take care of high blood sugar instead of being on dialysis for 20 years. We have to expand Medicaid in the state of Georgia immediately.
Are you already thinking about what you will prioritize when elected? Like what will be the first things you do?
Oh, yes, I have. No, #1, Medicaid expansion is #1 on my list because, and Sarah Riggs-Amico is here. She's running for lieutenant governor, and Sarah and I are in Sarah, stand up. Sarah is from Cobb County, but Sarah is a business owner who has a company that has grown from 100 employees to 3,500 employees. Every single one has health care. Every single one. She also has daycare. And so what she has been able to do while growing her company is something Georgia can do while growing its state. If we expand Medicaid, we stabilize rural communities, we allow rural communities to get jobs because no one's bringing a company to a place where you can't get a doctor.
Right.
But you can also stabilize the economies of our communities, and 500,000 Georgians suddenly won't have to worry about missing work because they have a cold, or worse, coming to work with that cold so everybody else gets sick. And then after that, I got to work on education. We got to get stuff done on transit. I know Cobb County, you guys have a few issues with transit. But yeah, I'm excited because I know that the first 100 days sets the tone, but what we can do to stabilize, reorient, and then move the state forward, building on a legacy, the Republicans haven't been all bad. Governor Deal and I have worked together on criminal justice reform, on transportation, on education, on kinship care, grandparents and others raising children. We can build on that legacy, but we have to know that we can't leave anybody else behind, and Georgia's left too many people behind, and that's why we've got to do this immediately and hard.
Okay, I'm going to change the subject just a little bit. You know I love books, and I was so fascinated when I heard that you'd been writing under a pseudonym. I want to know, is that how you calm down? Is that how you relax? Is that your getaway space, writing?
So I'm not just saying this because you're sitting here. I wrote it down before so people can tell you I'm telling the truth. When I was in college, I had a list. I broke up with this boy and he was really mean to me. So I made a list of all the things I was going to do to prove to him that he made the worst mistake of his life.
I have those moments too, I know.
I did mine on Lotus 1, 2, 3. It was a spreadsheet. I had dates, I had accomplishments, I had a timetable. One was to be kind of like you a little bit one day, but one was that I was going to be a best-selling novelist. And so in law school, instead of going to all of my classes, I wrote my first romance novel. I was called Rules of Engagement, and then they bought it, and then I started writing more and more. I moved into leadership, sort of memoir books, nonfiction recently. And in between, I wrote I wrote an essay on the operational dissonance of the unrelated business income tax exemption. I think my father's the only person outside of my law school who read it. But yes, I love writing. Writing makes me happy. My mom was a librarian before she became a pastor. So before my mom and dad became pastors, my mom was a librarian, and we would sleep in the stacks. So we literally grew up around books. I love reading, I love writing, I love storytelling, and it's cathartic. Plus, I get to kill a lot of people. I write romantic suspense, so I kill a lot of people first. And those who survive get to fall in love.
So that's wonderful. What are you doing to sustain yourself? Because this is grueling. What do you do? Do you have a favorite TV show?
I watch an inordinate amount of television.
You do?
I do. People don't believe it's possible. I watch a lot of TV. So right now I'm watching The Good Place. I'm watching Blackish. I watch Guys Grocery Games on Food Channel. There's this show called Greenleaf. I love that. I watch reruns of Star Trek Voyager, Leverage.
Okay,
I watch a lot of TV.
Oh, that surprises me that you have the time.
I don't sleep a lot, so
Okay.
I watch a lot of TV.
Okay, so what are you going to do November 7th?
Hopefully I will be on. Hopefully I will. Yes. I got to wait till I get into office then. But no, I mean, look, I'm hopefully going to spend the morning on morning shows telling everyone how wonderful it was to win this election. And then I'm going to finish a book. My sisters and brothers and I, we have a book club that we do together. So I've got to read the book because I think the next meeting is in November. So I got to get that done. And then I'm going to watch some TV. I'm going to take a nap.
Do you have a favorite book? Do you have a favorite book?
So I have three. So The Intuitionist by Colson Whitehead, which is just beautiful, and he loves language. I really love...
I loved his Underground Railroad.
Yes. I love the book The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle by Haruki Murakami.
Don't know that.
He's a Japanese writer who writes really sort of fantastical stories. And then my favorite romance novel is Honest Illusions by Nora Roberts. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What's the last meal you cooked?
Last meal I cooked, I made myself risotto with peppers and sausage and crusted chicken romano. So chicken breasts with Parmesan and Romano cheese. I like to cook.
Well, okay then. Okay then.
Can I do something?
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Please. I'm ready.
Miss Winfrey.
Yes.
So you talked about why you vote and why you're here. Can you talk about the moment where you were most afraid and how that transformed how you think about the future?
Easier to answer about a TV show, but okay. The moment I was most afraid was when I had ended the OPRAH show. After 25 years, I made that decision myself and was stepping into building a network, and I had every media outlet in the world saying I should have kept my day job. And it's hard not to hear all the negative stuff and not let yourself be impacted by it. And I had a come to Jesus meeting with myself outside under my oaks. And you know that thing where you literally pray, I surrender all, and give it to Jesus. And I said, please help me see whatever it is I'm supposed to be seeing. And I changed the paradigm of what people were telling me was a struggle and turned it into an opportunity. That's what I was able to do. Yeah, thank you for that. So we know that everybody in this audience is going to vote. Who's already pre-voted? About a year. So now everybody in here is going to vote or has pre-voted. What can we do to support you in the next 4 days? What do we need to do? What can we do?
Volunteer hard. So you all are here because you're paying attention, but you all know 5 people who do not believe that this election matters. And it's not because they're apathetic. I hate when people say that. It's not apathy. It's often that they don't know because no one's ever bothered to tell them how the dots connect. So if you heard something, if you care about education, You need to tell a woman that you know or a man that you know that their special needs child will get a better education under a Governor Abrams who believes in investing in special needs education. But I need every one of you to find 5 people every single day between now and Election Day and get them to vote. I need you to call people you don't like, call people you're mad at, call people you broke up with. I need you to number one, I need you to volunteer by calling. I need you to knock doors. We have to knock doors. Oprah Winfrey knocked doors today.
So you should have seen me. I had my little clipboard, honey. I was knocking on some doors this morning.
Yes. And so if you will text the words blue GA to, is it 97779. So 9, 3 7s and a 9. If you will text the word blue GA to that number, 9779, we will tell you about all the volunteer opportunities. This is going to be a razor close election, and we do not want a runoff. That means I need you all to get 5 people every single day. If you want to do 10 a day, go for that. But we have got to turn out in this election. We will win this. And if you don't believe me, believe my opponent. He said if every eligible voter in the state of Georgia votes, he will not win. I will win.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Abrams. Thanks, everybody.
For Stacey, not that other bro. Win, 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 win. Vote for Stacey Abrams. That's a win, 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 win. ATL so lit. Win, 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 win. She the #1 pick.
For the continued oppression in Venezuela. From the U.S. perspective, our demands are simple and straightforward. We call for the immediate release of all Venezuelan political prisoners, acceptance of international humanitarian assistance, free, fair, and credible elections, and legitimate steps to restore democratic institutions and the rule of law in Venezuela. Since taking office, President Trump has signed 4 executive orders targeting corruption and the looting of the Venezuelan economy. The administration has sanctioned over 70 Venezuelan individuals and entities, including the president and his wife, along with senior members of his regime. And we have levied a kingpin drug trafficking designation on a member of Maduro's inner circle. We have also condemned the regime's involvement in the death earlier this month of a Venezuelan opposition councilman in the custody of the intelligence services. We have likewise spoken out against the apparent August torture of yet another opposition councilman. Today, I'm proud to share that President Trump has signed a new executive order to impose tough new sanctions against Venezuela. The new sanctions will target networks operating within corrupt Venezuelan economic sectors and deny them access to stolen wealth. Most immediately, the new sanctions will prevent U.S. persons from engaging with actors and networks complicit in corrupt or deceptive transactions in the Venezuelan gold sector. The Maduro regime has used this sector as a bastion to finance illicit activities, to fill its coffers, and to support criminal groups. The United States will not tolerate Maduro's undermining of democratic institutions and ruthless violence against innocent civilians. Finally, in Nicaragua, the United States continues to condemn the Ortega regime's violence and repression against its citizens and opposition members. Ortega and his allies have completely eroded democratic institutions, stifled free speech, and imposed a policy of jail, exile, or death for political opponents. The government continues to illegally detain protesters and manipulate laws to target innocent civilians. Earlier this month, a student protester was detained unlawfully, and to this day, his whereabouts remain unknown to his family. This behavior is unacceptable anywhere, and especially in the Western Hemisphere. Free, fair, and early elections must be held in Nicaragua, and democracy must be restored to the Nicaraguan people. Until then, the Nicaraguan regime, like Venezuela and Cuba, will feel the full weight of America's robust sanctions regime. The troika of tyranny in this hemisphere will not endure forever. Like all oppressive regimes and ideologies, they too will meet their demise. The people of Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua are fearsome opponents. And if I were Diaz-Canel, Maduro, or Ortega, I would fear their virtuous power. These tyrants fancy themselves strongmen and revolutionaries, icons and luminaries. In reality, they are clownish, pitiful figures more akin to Larry, Curly, and Moe. The three stooges of socialism are true believers, but they worship a false god. We know their day of reckoning awaits. We see its origins in the brave ladies in white who courageously take to the streets to defend their families and all of Cuba. We feel it shiver in the crowd around the flag-draped coffin of 15-year-old Orlando Cordoba, killed in a peaceful protest in Nicaragua. We hear its echo in the piercing chants outside of a Venezuelan military base. Libertad, libertad, libertad. The United States now looks forward to watching each corner of the triangle fall, in Havana, in Caracas, in Managua. While we await that fateful day, the people of the region can be assured that the United States stands with them against the forces of oppression, totalitarianism, and domination. Look to the north, look to our flag, look to your own. The troika will crumble, the people will triumph, and the righteous flame of freedom will burn brightly again in this hemisphere. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Now, I'm happy to answer some questions, and I'm not sure what our format is, but I'm sure somebody will instruct me whether I should recognize them or how you want to do this. Oh, okay. Well, I'll stand corrected. I'm going to be interviewed, and I look forward to that too. So I'll take a chair.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. Can you hear? Okay. Distinguished members of Congress, and also ambassadors, welcome. It is an honor for me to be here in this event and to have the opportunity to be able to interview Ambassador Bolton here in front of all of you. I am Ambrosia Hernandez, news anchor for Channel 23 News, Univision Miami, and also the news anchor for the weekly political show Al Punto Florida. Thank you. Muy buenas tardes. Muy buenas tardes, damas y caballeros, distinguidos miembros del Congreso, embajadores y también otras personalidades que están aquí hoy con nosotros, expresos políticos y líderes del exilio cubano. Para mí es un honor estar aquí entre ustedes. Este lugar es muy especial para mí porque de pequeño yo también vine aquí a la Torre de la Libertad con mis padres cuando salí de Cuba y de aquí tomamos rumbo hacia Chicago. Así que me emociona bastante estar aquí. I'm telling the crowd that this is a very special moment for me, very emotional, because as a child, I came through this place here, Freedom Tower, with my parents when we left Cuba. And from here, we went to Chicago, where I grew up. Así que es un honor estar aquí con ustedes. Yo soy Ambrosio Hernández, presentador de noticias del noticiero del Canal 23 Univisión y también presentador del programa semanal político Al Punto Florida. Si me lo permiten, primero voy a hacer la pregunta en español y después en inglés para el embajador. I will first ask Ambassador Bolton in Spanish for editing purposes and then in English. Thank you so much. Embajador Bolton, usted aquí en este discurso que ha dado dice que dentro de pocos días van a añadir más sanciones hacia Cuba. ¿Puede elaborar un poco más a cuáles grupos y de qué se trata? Ambassador Bolton, I have to make a pause so I can go from Spanish into English for editing purposes. This is like live TV, okay? Ambassador Bolton, you said that within days the U.S. will add sanctions to Cuba. Can you expand on that, please?
Yes, the decision has been made in reviewing additional individuals and entities who should be subject. So we're going to proceed with that. I think I can also say, as I mentioned in my speech, that it's important that the administration carry through on President Trump's commitments that he made here in Miami last year. And so we're going to be engaged in a kind of continuing review to make sure that we've implemented fully and completely all of the things that he wanted to do. And as I say, until we see change in the behavior of the government in Cuba, in particular, we're going to make sure that we put as much pressure on as we can, because ultimately it's only when the people get a chance to control the government there that we can be sure that democratic institutions and human rights will flourish. So it's, I think the past administration made a grievous mistake in letting the pressure up. I think it gave a lifeline to the Castro regime and its successor, and it's unfortunate because the principal victims, of course, have been the people of Cuba.
Thank you. Usted en el discurso aquí en la Torre de la Libertad también acaba de mencionar que el presidente Trump firmó una nueva orden ejecutiva con nuevas sanciones para Venezuela. Quisiéramos escuchar de qué se tratan estas sanciones y cuándo ya serán implementadas. During the speech, Ambassador Bolton, you also mentioned that President Trump had just signed an executive order with new sanctions against Venezuela. When will they be implemented?
Well, immediately is the short answer to that question, because the executive order takes effect immediately. The Treasury Department and other agencies will be working on that. We think that the goal...
Technology, research, development. Without a doubt, we're the world's top innovator. Billions have been spent investing in research and development. This has given our country advantages, both economically and militarily, that have benefited the daily lives of American citizens. It's no surprise that our geopolitical rivals around the world would take notice. That is why they often try to steal our inventions, defraud us of the proceeds of our investments. Too often, they've been successful. Discoveries that took years of work and millions of dollars in investment here in the United States can be stolen by a computer hacker or carried out the door by an employee in a matter of minutes. This theft is not just wrong, it poses a grave threat to our national security, and it's unlawful. But under President Trump, the United States is standing up to the deliberate, systematic, and calculated threat posed to us around the world, and in particular by the communist regime in China, which is notorious around the world for intellectual property theft. Earlier this year, a report from the United States Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer found that Chinese sponsorship of hacking into American businesses and commercial networks has been taking place for more than a decade and is a serious problem that burdens American commerce. The problem has been growing rapidly, and along with China's other unfair trade practices, it poses a real and illegal threat to our nation's economic prosperity and to our competitiveness. Perhaps this threat has been overshadowed in the press by threats from Russia or Islamic terrorism, but while it has been in the shadows, the threat has only grown more dangerous, as I have been informed from the day I first came to this department. From 2013 to 2016, the Department of Justice did not charge anyone with spying for China. But since the beginning of 2017, we've charged 3 people with spying for China or attempting or conspiring to do so. And when it comes to trade secret theft, we are currently prosecuting 5 other cases where the theft or attempted theft was for the benefit of the Chinese government. In 2015, China committed publicly that it would not target American companies for economic gain. Obviously, that commitment has not been met. Just ask GE Aviation or Trimble of Sunnyvale, California. So today, I am announcing another economic espionage case against Chinese interest. And before I do that, I want to remind everyone that defendants in this case, as in every case, are innocent until proven guilty. So I am announcing that a grand jury in San Francisco has returned an indictment alleging economic espionage on the part of a Chinese state-owned, government-owned company, a Taiwan company, and 3 Taiwan individuals for an alleged scheme to steal trade secrets from Micron, an Idaho-based semiconductor company. Micron is worth an estimated $100 billion. It controls about 20 to 25% of the dynamic random access memory industry, a technology not possessed by the Chinese until very recently. One of the defendants served as president of a company acquired by Micron in 2013. He left the company in 2015 and went to work for the Taiwan defendant company, from where he is alleged to have orchestrated the theft of trade secrets from Micron worth up to $8.75 billion. The Taiwan defendant company then partnered with a Chinese state-owned company so that ultimately China could steal this technology from the United States and then use it to compete against us in the open market. This is a brazen scheme. If convicted, the defendants face up to 15 years in prison, $5 million in fines, and the companies could face forfeiture and fines worth more than $20 billion. This week, the Commerce Department added the Chinese company to the entity list to prevent it from buying goods and services in the United States, to keep it from profiting from the technology it stole. And today, the Department of Justice is filing a civil action to seek an action that would prevent the Chinese and Taiwan companies from transferring the stolen technology or exporting products based on it to the United States. We are not just reacting to the crimes, therefore, we are acting to block the defendants from doing more harm to our United States-based company, Migrant. United States Attorney Alex C. of the Northern District of California will provide you more information on this case in a moment. But again, I want to remind everyone that the defendants in this case, as in every case, are innocent until proven guilty. As the cases I have discussed have shown, Chinese economic espionage against the United States has been increasing, and it has been increasing rapidly. We are here today to say enough is enough. We're not going to take it anymore. It's unacceptable. It's time for China to join the community of lawful nations. International trade has been good for China, but cheating must stop, and we must have more law enforcement cooperation with them. China cannot be a safe haven for criminals who run to China when they are in trouble, never to be extradited. China must accept the repatriation of Chinese citizens who break U.S. immigration law and are ordered to be returned. So we'll continue to charge wrongdoers based on carefully conducted investigations done with integrity, done with professionalism, not politics. And we will seek extradition of criminals. To be prosperous trading partners, integrity and cooperation are essential. That is a fundamental principle. And today I'm focusing more of the Department of Justice resources to counter those threats. I am announcing that I have ordered the creation of a China initiative led by Assistant Attorney General John Demers, who's with us here, who heads our National Security Division and composed of a senior FBI executive, 5 United States attorneys, including Alex, and several other Department of Justice leaders and officials, including Assistant Attorney General for our Criminal Division, Brian Benchkowski, who's also with me today. This initiative will identify priority trade theft cases, ensure that we have enough resources dedicated to them, and make sure that we bring them to an appropriate conclusion quickly and effectively. This administration's new initiative will address 2 major responsibilities of our National Security Division: the Foreign Investment Review Staff's review of investments and licenses in U.S. infrastructure and telecommunications, and the Foreign Agent Registration Act unit's work to counter covert efforts to influence our leaders and the general public. So this will help us meet the new and evolving threats to our economy. Today we see Chinese espionage not just taking place against traditional targets like our defense and intelligence agencies, but against targets like research labs, universities, and we see Chinese propaganda disseminated on our campuses. And so I have directed this initiative to focus on these problems as well as to recommend legislation to Congress if that's found necessary. China, like any advanced nation, must decide whether it wants to be a trusted partner on the world stage, or whether it wants to be known around the world as a dishonest regime, running a corrupt economy, founded on fraud, theft, and strong-arm tactics. Our wish is to have a trusted partner. Our wish is for a relationship that gets better in the years to come and helps ensure a peaceful world for centuries to come. The President has made clear that this country remains open to friendship and productive relations with China. Nothing is more important for the world. We want our relations to improve, not get worse, but these problems must be solved. The problems must be confronted. The threats must be ended. This Department of Justice and the Trump administration have already made our decision. We will not allow our sovereignty to be disrespected, our intellectual property to be stolen, or our people to be robbed of their hard-earned prosperity. We want fair trade and good relations based on honest dealings. We will enforce our laws. We will protect America's national interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney General. Whether by co-opting employees, by computer intrusions, or by a combination of both, agents of the Chinese government are systematically stealing our nation's intellectual property for the benefit of their own companies and their own nation's strategic interests. To counter this activity, the Attorney General has launched a nationwide initiative, and I'm honored to lead it. To glimpse the scope of the problem, just look at the recent cases that we've charged. In the case we unsealed today, the defendants are alleged to have misappropriated the intellectual property of an American company and gone to a different company to use this privileged knowledge to clone illegally a product to compete with the American product. Just 2 days ago, in the Southern District of California, we charged 10 defendants, including co-opted company insiders, working for and acting behalf of the Jiangsu Ministry of State Security, also known as the JSSD, an arm of the Chinese intelligence services. According to the charging documents, the defendants conspired to hack U.S. and European defense and aerospace companies in order to steal information to develop a Chinese version of a commercial airplane turbofan engine. Just over 3 weeks ago, in the Southern District of Ohio, we obtained the extradition of a JSSD intelligence officer who was alleged to have attempted to co-opt an employee of a defense contractor in order to steal trade secrets related to commercial airplane engines. In September, in the Northern District of Illinois, we charged an individual here in the U.S. who acted as a source for a JSSD intelligence officer, helping him, among other things, to assess engineers and scientists for recruitment. In August, in the Northern District of New York, we charged an individual with stealing turbine technology and sending it to China. And so it goes. Taken together, these cases and many others like them paint a grim picture of a country bent on stealing its way up the ladder of economic development, and doing so at American expense. This behavior is illegal, it's wrong, it's a threat to our national security, and it must stop. The National Security Division has a variety of tools available to deal with this problem. First, we can bring prosecutions. These prosecutions have a variety of benefits, including deterrence and education. But the bottom line is that through the criminal charges, civil injunctions, entity listing, and other economic tools, the U.S. government is making a coordinated, concerted effort to deprive the thief of the benefit of his crime. In addition, when the Chinese use their financial clout to buy or make strategic investments to gain access to American technology or to personal data, the National Security Division will work with our partners on the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States to protect our sensitive technologies and data from national security risk. And when Chinese activity turns to malign influence of American politics in order to further China's economic and political agenda, we will use the Foreign Agents Registration Act and related criminal and civil tools to ensure full transparency. China wants the fruits of America's brainpower to harvest the seeds of its desired economic dominance. With the Attorney General's initiative, we will confront China's malign behaviors and encourage them to conduct themselves as the leading nation they aspire to be.
Thank you, John. The Criminal Division fully supports the Attorney General's initiative to counter Chinese economic aggression. Every day, the Chinese engage in efforts to steal American trade secrets and commit other illegal acts intended to enrich their economy at the expense of American businesses. These acts are not only carried out by the Chinese government and its agents, they also are carried out through companies and individuals who commit crimes here and abroad. American citizens and businesses suffer as a result. To counter these efforts and complement the work of the National Security Division, prosecutors in the Criminal Division work collaboratively every day with the United States Attorney's offices around the country to bring charges against Chinese companies and individuals for theft of trade secrets. And today we're announcing a commitment to redouble our efforts in this area. We see it time and again. Chinese actors have stolen wind turbine technology in Wisconsin, agricultural research in Kansas, cancer drug research in Pennsylvania, and software source code in New York. Wherever we see examples of this kind of criminal behavior, The department will investigate it and prosecute it to the fullest extent possible. We also will continue to work hard to ensure that offenders face justice in United States courts. Our Office of International Affairs is the focal point for all extraditions around the globe. And in just the last few years, the department has successfully extradited 9 Chinese individuals, including 2 for theft of trade secrets. Long prison terms for these offenders help to create much-needed deterrence. The Chinese government has also shielded its banks from our lawful requests for evidence. This policy has resulted in rampant money laundering of criminal proceeds in Chinese banks. The Chinese financial system should not be a safe haven for criminal enterprises, and Chinese banks should not have an unfair advantage over American ones. We know that Chinese companies and individuals have also bribed government officials in other countries in order to win contracts. The Criminal Division is fully committed to enforcing the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, and bringing these offenders to justice will help create a level playing field for American companies in foreign markets. In short, the Criminal Division is committed to bringing every necessary resource to bear in support of this effort. We're proud to be part of the initiative with our partners in NSD, United States Attorney's offices across the country, and federal law enforcement. We'll work hard to do our part to assure fairness in the global economic system as we continue to fight this threat. Now I'd like to turn it over to Deputy Director Bowditch from the FBI.
Thank you, Brian. Good afternoon. So very quickly, I want to thank the Attorney General and the Department of Justice for their efforts in this regard. This is a serious threat to our country. The threats we face in the national security realm have never been more complex. And today we're standing before you focused on one country that continues to pose one of the broadest, most complicated, and longest-term threats we face. That country's China. Actors working to benefit China are the most active perpetrators of economic espionage against this country. Every type of business is at risk, big companies, small ones, those located in major cities, small towns, even in urban areas. And those looking to infiltrate companies, or in many cases, steal trade secrets, are not what you'd necessarily expect you'd see when you think of traditional espionage actors. Often these individuals are insiders, employees working in the targeted company. They can be students or others in the larger academic community conducting authorized research, but then sharing the results with others without approval. Networks of people are used to piece together, bit by bit, the various components of our sensitive processes, our proprietary data, and our state secrets. These unconventional actors are becoming the new face of the China threat. They seek to gain any advantage on the global stage through whatever data they can pilfer. Nearly every one of our 56 FBI field offices throughout this nation has investigations into economic espionage that lead back to the country of China. We've had cases where actors have targeted corn seeds in the field of Iowa, software for wind turbines in Massachusetts, and in this case, complex semiconductor memory technology from a company based in Boise, Idaho. The Chinese government is not pulling any punches. They're strategic in their approach. They actually have a formal plan set out in 5-year increments to achieve dominance in critical areas. Our response to the DOJ initiative is very favorable, and we will support it in all regards. But we're bringing all of our investigative resources to bear against this threat to protect the United States and our interests. We're using a broad set of tools and allies. We use our traditional law enforcement authorities to arrest malicious state actors. We might also work with the State Department to have a subject's visa revoked. We might work with the Departments of Commerce and Treasury to sanction a foreign company for misconduct. And we might work directly with a U.S. company itself to help identify and remove an insider threat. We know we've got to be in lockstep with our partners at every single level. We're not just standing up here today, shoulder to shoulder at a press conference. We work together side by side, shoulder to shoulder throughout this country with the U.S. Attorney's offices in all the districts to ensure we're doing everything we can to identify and mitigate threats, which include the prosecution of wrongdoers. We're also working with our state and local law enforcement partners. They are often, as in many cases, the first ones who are called when businesses and people in communities across the U.S. suspect foul play. But as I said, we're going to need the help of partners at every level. That's why we work very closely with American businesses and corporations throughout this country. There is a very good sharing of information that goes on between us and them, as well as with our university partners throughout this country. It will take all of us working together to combat these threats, the threats we face from China, and to protect the security and the stability of our economy and our way of life for many generations to come. Next up, I'd like to introduce the U.S. Attorney of San Francisco, or Northern District.
Thank you, and good afternoon. My name is Alex C. I am the United States Attorney for the Northern District of California. As you have heard today, the Department of Justice announces that a federal grand jury in the Northern District has handed down a criminal indictment. As I will explain, that indictment describes an alleged criminal conspiracy between 3 individuals, one Taiwan corporation, and one additional company funded by the People's Republic of China. These 5 defendants have been charged with conspiracy to commit theft of trade secrets, economic espionage, and the conspiracy to commit economic espionage. The defendants are United Microelectronics Corporation, or UMC, Fujian Jinhua Integrated Circuit Company, or Jinhua, Chen Zhuangzhen, or otherwise known as Stephen Chen, He Zhenting, otherwise known as J.T. Ho, and Wang Yangming, otherwise known as Kenny Wang. The Department of Justice also filed a civil complaint under the Economic Espionage Act against some of these same defendants. We bring the civil lawsuit to prevent further dissemination of the trade secrets and to prevent any products using the stolen technology from entering the United States. The trade secrets at issue involve leading-edge technology referred to in the indictment as DRAM technology. The technology involves what was at the time of the alleged theft some of the most advanced semiconductor computer chips in the world. The chips were designed and manufactured by Micron Technology, Inc., or Micron, a United States company. The DRAM technology at issue is based on research and development and other proprietary information worth hundreds of millions, perhaps billions of dollars. UMC is publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange and is headquartered in Taiwan. The company mass produces logic integrated circuit products. UMC generally did not create its own designs and technology. UMC did not possess advanced DRAM technology prior to the alleged theft of Micron's trade secrets. Chen is a Taiwan national who worked for a Micron subsidiary from 2013 until 2015. After leaving Micron, Chen began working for UMC. He recruited a number of Micron employees to join him at UMC, including Ho and Wang. And Chen allegedly conspired with Ho and Wang to steal, convey, and or possess Micron's trade secrets to benefit UMC, and ultimately the People's Republic of China. In February of 2016, the People's Republic of China created and funded Jinhua for the purpose of designing, developing, and manufacturing DRAM. UMC and Jinhua entered into a technology sharing agreement, negotiated in part by Chen, whereby UMC would design DRAM technology, transfer that technology to Jinhua, and Jinhua would mass produce the DRAM. Instead of designing and producing DRAM from the independent development of intellectual property, the defendants in the indictment conspired to steal the technology from Micron. This indictment highlights the benefits of cooperation between high-tech companies and law enforcement. The Northern District of California is home to countless innovative companies, including those in Silicon Valley. We take seriously the need to protect the technology that forms the backbone of our modern economy. By working with victim companies, we make it possible to bring to justice those who would steal the technology developed here in the United States. Whether the theft is carried out by a foreign government or a standalone company, We will prosecute those who steal our trade secrets to the fullest extent of the law. This case is also an example of how international law enforcement cooperation among like-minded partners can support global trading rules and counter state-sponsored economic espionage. Taiwan's dedication to enforcing Taiwan's own trade secret laws was apparent throughout the entire process, even while investigating a large Taiwan company for its role in trade secret theft. I would like to thank Taiwan's Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of Justice Investigations Bureau for their efforts and cooperation. Taiwan's capable law enforcement professionals demonstrated their commitment to mutual legal assistance with the Department of Justice and the FBI. And I also, as a representative of the U.S. attorney community, look forward to working on this China initiative. Finally, we thank the FBI and the National Security Division for their hard work and assistance, which allowed us to bring this case forward today. Thank you.
Okay, questions?
Question for you, Mr. Demers. This problem has been talked about for years, and as you've all mentioned, there's the resistance coming from the Chinese government. What specifically are you looking for in order to break the resistance that's coming from the Chinese government? What more can you get from the White House or other parts of the administration to address that issue? And then a question for you, Deputy Director Bowditch. Is there any evidence that China is interfering in the U.S. election next week?
So on the first question, so we've been doing more and more, and I think that's what I tried to lay out in the cases. If you look at the cases, obviously from the very first one against state-sponsored theft of commercial IP in 2014 against the PLA to today, the drumbeat's gotten a lot more frequent and a lot louder, I think, recently. And this is not something that we're going to do alone. We will be working with our partners in the State Department. We talked about the action that the Commerce Department took